If you've been following this story, this is a big deal. One of the most sought-after college quarterbacks, Darian Mensah, has reached a settlement with Duke that will allow him to leave the Blue Devils after initially signing to keep playing there. Our Pete Thamel is reporting that the settlement paves the way for Mensah to transfer to Miami. That has been his expected destination since he entered the portal earlier this month, leading to a legal battle with Duke. Mensah would replace Carson Beck, of course, at Miami. Mensah ranked in the top 5 in several key categories in the FBS, including touchdown passes and passing yards. He had 6 games with 3 or more passing touchdowns in 2025, and so now the expectation is he will be headed to the U and see if they can't make another run again next year. Okay, time for Overreaction Tuesday with our man Graziano, and here we go. Dan, if I were to say Matthew Stafford is going to make another run to the Super Bowl in his career, would that be an overreaction?
Yes, I would consider that an overreaction. It's very difficult to get as far as the Rams got this year with Matthew Stafford at age 37. He's about to turn 38. Had a tumultuous offseason last year with the contract situation, with the back situation. He really kind of put a lot of stuff in the rearview mirror just to have the year he had and still didn't get there. It's only going to get tougher.
Here's the thing. I would say, look, if he decides he wants to play another season, and my gut feeling is that he does, and Orlovsky, who knows him well, said yesterday that while he hasn't talked to him, he expects him to come back and play another year. It wasn't his side of the ball that let them down, right? I mean, the last 2 months of the season, that defense just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
They figure something out on that side of the ball. Dominique, I'm not sure they can't come back and be as good as anybody again and make another run at this thing next year.
Yeah, I don't think the talent will be the problem. It's just the fact that Matt Stafford stayed healthy all season, and they had a lot of their players staying healthy all season, and the talent, the teams around them are also going to get better. I think that's the part that makes it difficult, is Matt Stafford is definitely at the end, near the end of his career, and he doesn't have 10 years left to play. So that's the hard part about predicting that they're going to get back, is we know how fickle it can be, and the wrong person gets hurt. They managed to have Devontae Adams come back healthy and contribute, and Puka stay healthy all year long, and the offensive line hold up in the running attack. Like, all those things have to go right again next year for them to make this run, and it's hard to predict that for any team.
I had a lot of people ask me this week, Jeff, do you, and I'll ask it to you, do you think Matthew Stafford is a lock for the Hall of Fame?
Ooh, lock for the Hall of Fame. I will say he'll go in. I think just from the near or the modern kind of history of what the Rams look like, I think people will kind of put the Detroit stuff behind them. And I think with as well as he's played, and you think even this game that he played, I mean, the guy throws for almost 400 yards, right? So, like, I mean, it wasn't, to your point, his side of the ball. I know they don't make the 3rd and 4th down at the end of the game to ultimately get the win. I think people look at numbers more than anything. So, yeah, I think people will put him in the Hall of Fame.
Lock Hall of Fame?
I think it happens, and I think to what Jeff's point is, you look at the numbers nowadays, Matthew Stafford is going to be in the top 10 of a lot of major passing categories, and I think the fact that he won that Super Bowl, and assuming if he's the MVP winner this year, I think that's the difference maker that puts him in that MVP conversation. But to me, he's right on that borderline of a Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah, agreed. The MVP helps because one of the arguments against a guy like this for the Hall of Fame is, was he ever the best player in the league? Yep. And if you're MVP, you can answer yes.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that would be big for him. But I agree that it's borderline. He probably does get in. The narrative seems to have really moved in his direction since he went to the Rams from Detroit. So I think it probably does get in. But I don't think it's a slam dunk.
No, I think he gets in. I agree with you. The MVP is a big part of it. And I think a second Super Bowl would have elevated him to a different room in the Hall of Fame. Graziano, next overreaction. If I said the Denver Broncos are going to win that division again next year, is that an overreaction?
It is. The team that won it the previous 9 years, the Kansas City Chiefs, should improve. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, will come back and play at some point next season, even if it's not week 1. The Los Angeles Chargers are extremely good under Jim Harbaugh. I think it's going to be a tough division to win. I think the Broncos found it to be that this year, and while I would consider them a contender, I think it's an overreaction to assume they repeat.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be one of the toughest divisions in the football. And so when you're talking about, you're just going to rubber stamp that they're going to go in this thing, they'll be a good team. Make no mistake, Sean Payton's got this group going, the defense. But part of this is predicated on Vance Joseph staying there, in my opinion, right? If he gets a head coaching job and leaves, they got to bring in a new coordinator. All those things change. Like, we talk about all these things like everything stays kumbaya with every person on the staff and your players come back and they want to be there. There's a lot to be decided from now until the start of next season. So to rubber stamp them as guaranteed, I would say be a massive overreaction.
Certainly not guaranteed, but if you had to pick a team right now, I'm asking you to pick the winner of next year's AFC West. Would it be Denver?
I'm going to go with the Chargers. Why not? Let's not go with the Chiefs. Let's not go with the Broncos. Let's say the Chargers with Mike McDaniel, with Justin Herbert, they find a way to overcome and win the division.
Their tackles were healthy. They probably would have done it this year with Rashawn Slater and Alt, who got knocked out of the season. Nick, that's the question. Are the Broncos right now picking the champion of next year's AFC West? Is it Denver?
Yeah, I think you have to lean towards Denver because of what they've done, assuming Bo Nix comes back healthy. But I think, honestly, your point about the Chargers, they made the playoffs without two of their best players. Like, that team is constructed around having two tackles that you don't need to help. And they were gone all year long, and they still hung in there. So they do lose Jesse Minter, the coordinator of their defense, so maybe their defense may not be as good. But I think it's fair to assume that they'll be back and even better considering the fact that their tackles are the most important parts of their offense next to the quarterback.
All right, last overreaction. Graziano, if I said Mike McCarthy will win a playoff.
Brady possibly joining up here. Brady, of course, a candidate for head coaching jobs. So if they are interested in someone like that, they probably have to wait for that cycle to play itself out. Speaking of which, Phillip Rivers withdrew his name from consideration for the Buffalo Bills head coaching job, which came open 8 days ago.
What a shame. That would have been a lot of fun.
I mean, it would have been amazing. And maybe someday it will be with the Buffalo or some other team. But now the Bills are on to other candidates. They interviewed Davis Webb, the Broncos quarterbacks coach, yesterday. Joe Brady is a candidate there. Brian Daboll's a candidate there. Those are three guys that have very close relationships with Bills quarterback Josh Allen. So it wouldn't be a surprise, I don't think, to see any of them end up with the job. Raiders head coach list kind of has a lot of similarities to the Bills. They interviewed Davis Webb yesterday as well. They interviewed Brian Daboll over the weekend. They've interviewed Joe Brady twice. So the Raiders looking at some of the same kind of candidates, and they have been connected in speculation to Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offensive coordinator. They obviously could not hire him now until after the Super Bowl. But I think it also raises a question as we look at these remaining head coach jobs. You know, is someone like Clint Kubiak better off in the job he already has and waiting out next year's head coach cycle than taking one of these in places where winning has traditionally been tough?
Of all things, for those of you just joining us, we had the wrestler, The Miz, on a little bit earlier, and he's a crazy Cleveland Browns fan, and his reaction was, why does no one want to coach the team?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the kind of question that answers itself on some level. But, Jeff, I think it raises an interesting side question. I said to someone in a conversation here, Mike McDaniel, who is probably only going to get one more head coaching shot in his life, right? He's going to get, we don't usually get three of these.
So Mike McCarthy.
He has that was a unique situation. But he, I think in retrospect, his tenure in Miami is going to wind up looking better than it looks right this minute.
Yeah.
He's better off going and being the offensive coordinator for a year or two at the Chargers, do a great job there with Justin Herbert, make himself a super attractive candidate for his second shot, and then get a job where he has a chance to do some winning rather than going to one of these dead-end spots where you're just getting hired to get fired again in 2 or 3 years, and then you will never get another opportunity at it. Some of these high-profile coordinator jobs, I think, have become better than head coaching jobs. What do you think of that, Jeff Saturday?
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think when you're talking about Mike McDaniel and what he just went through and what he faced in Miami, to go and be settled and have one thing to focus on and watch maybe what Harbaugh does a little bit different than what you did or what some other coaches may bring to the table, and just learning a little more to round out what you're about, I don't think is a bad thing. And to your point, going to a place where they haven't won, but they have these expectations like they are going to turn it around in a year or two would be silly. Wait for the right opportunity. Wait for the right organization and community you want to go be a part of, and then take the job. But I think, to your point, there are a lot of jobs out there that you can take and wait. 10 were happening this year. You know there's going to be a bunch this year as well. It's just the way the NFL goes. Be patient. Wait for the right job to come to you.
What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, but I mean, those jobs don't always come around. I think we can point to Ben Johnson and say it worked out well for him, kind of putting it off and making sure he found the right opportunity. But you could look at Sean Payton, and he took that job with the Broncos, which seemed like a terrible job, to join the division with Patrick Mahomes and with a quarterback who doesn't even play for you, that you're paying, that has an enormous cap hit, but he turned it around pretty quickly. I think a lot of these coaches don't think that way. You don't become a head coach in the NFL by making making a lot of prudent decisions. They all think they have enormous egos and think that they can go fix everything, every situation. So I'm a little surprised that this job is so easy, or this job is being so easy or so difficult to fill, or these jobs are so difficult to fill.
The Raiders one is an interesting one because you have the first pick.
Yep.
Right? So you have the opportunity to take Fernando Mendoza, assuming that you want to do that, or you have the opportunity to trade him. I think you could get a lot for that. So you have like a starting point, but there's so much uncertainty there, right? Like you've got so many different pieces. And Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. What exactly is his role there? How involved is he? He's the one extremely involved.
Yeah.
But then he's doing games every week and all. You know what I'm saying? So like
we're small-minded if we criticize that. Apparently, that's what Tom has said. But look, the problem with the Raiders is like they're currently paying at least 3 of their former head coaches.
Right.
Still. That's how often they change the position.
That's right.
So if you're going to the Raiders, there's a chance you're not going to be there for long.
Yeah, I think the attraction of, to your point, of the Tom Brady of it all kind of ended after last year because he hired Pete Carroll. He ends up firing 2 coordinators in his first season, and then he gets fired. So, yes, there is the attraction of the Mendoza pick being first overall, trading that. But from what I've heard, when you hear coaches speak, head coaches after they've been let go, all of them talk about ownership and everything above them, how it all has to be in order to be able to properly lay a foundation and win games year after year.
So that's what was so appealing to Sean Payton about the Denver situation was new ownership, obviously willing to spend at a high level because they have all the money in the entire world. And they laid out a plan, and he laid out his plan, and they knew they were going to be able to execute it because of the resources they have, because of Sean Payton and knowing what he can do. That's not true with all these other teams.
And I do think, too, when we talk about coaches taking jobs or staying as coordinators, when you talk about a Mike McDaniel, when you've been in those shoes as a head coach, now it makes sense to possibly take a year off, figure out what you didn't do right, the things that you can improve on. But for some of these young names that we've mentioned, when you're talking about becoming a head coach, you don't know whether it's going to come up, and you sometimes need that experience to grow from it.
I'm just quickly trying to pull up the list of all of the Raiders head coaches.
You can't do it quickly.
Just in recent years. Yes, it takes a very long time.
Antonio
just
Pierce,
over the last few years. Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, Josh McDaniels, Rich Bisaccia, John Gruden, Jack Del Rio. We've only